to ask you a very big question. We're going to take a little bit of divergence, but I'm going to take advantage of you and your coaching skills. Since you're doing coaching and helping people, you have a wonderful way of explaining certain things that to me make a lot of sense and make things seem really easy. So you mentioned type 1 diabetes, which you've been aware of with your son. You mentioned type 2 diabetes. We've talked about blood sugar. We've talked about insulin. We've talked about insulin resistance. Can you explain what is going on as far as blood glucose, insulin resistance, especially in the context of type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes? Because I think most people are still kind of confused about this, and they don't understand what the difference is between type 1, type 2. Why do both need insulin? What's going on there? Can you give us a good explanation of those things?
Yeah, so many people think when you're type 2 diabetic and once you go on insulin, that means you're type 1 diabetic, and that's just not true. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. The insulin, and everyone needs insulin, is produced in the pancreas. And the pancreas, or more specifically the islet cells in the pancreas that produce the insulin, are destroyed. So these often in childhood, kids find themselves without any insulin. So their blood sugars just shoot straight up. And when they are diagnosed, they're usually very thin. They eat as much as they can because they're starving, but there's no insulin to get the nutrition into the cells or the glucose into the cells. So I remember my son eating 2 burger patties, and those were like huge ones. I could only eat 1, and I was a good eater. So he ate 2, and he still wanted another one. And also he was thirsty all the time. So he had like very all the signs of diabetes, but I didn't know about them. And so that's type 1 diabetes. The pancreas or the islet cells die, and they stop making insulin, and you have to go on insulin. Otherwise, you don't survive. And there's no cure for type 1 diabetes. You have to be on insulin. You can manage type 1 diabetes great with keto or other things, but you have to know what you're doing. Type 2 diabetes is a disease of too much insulin. So instead of no insulin for the type 1, the type 2s have too much insulin. And but the insulin isn't doing its job anymore. The cells who should, when insulin knocks on the door and the cells should listen, they don't. So the body makes more and more insulin for the cells to take up more glucose, but the cells are full of glucose and they say no. And so this is why sugar levels then go up in type 2 diabetics. And eventually, when the pancreas is at max capacity, it cannot make any more insulin. That's when they have to start injecting insulin. But the mechanism is completely different. One's an autoimmune disease and the other one's a metabolic disease. And the good thing with the metabolic disease, you can turn that around by eating no sugar or less sugar, and by not eating as often to give the pancreas a break. And that's basically how I got off insulin. So when I started keto, I was on 50 units, 2-GO, which is a long-acting insulin. And I was able to reduce it greatly, but then my sugars went up again. So when I started intermittent fasting, that's when I got off insulin in 2 weeks. And I've been off insulin since.
2 weeks.
Yes, I was 6-7 months on keto, and I was on 50 units of insulin. And I thought, who cares? My A1C is 5.2. I'm good. I'm golden. But that's just not true. If you're insulin resistant, you're still doing damage to your cells because the insulin is still pushing in the glucose. And I thought, oh man, I'm doing all this and I'm still doomed. And then I found Dr. Jason Fung. And he has a 6-part series. It's called The Etiology of Obesity.
Yeah.
And it seems unrelated, but that explained why I should fast and how I should fast. And it's basically just skipping breakfast. So it's not like people were starving and not eating. That's not true. I'm just skipping breakfast.
It's so simple. Like anybody could start doing that. And the way he explains it is wonderful. The way you just explained it in 5 minutes tells me that you understand more about these diseases than probably most medical professionals who are treating actual patients. Like, if you sit down and think about what you just said, type 2 diabetes is a disease of too much insulin. So let's treat type 2 diabetes by giving people more insulin.
Obviously.
Really? Okay, so like, if alcoholism is a problem of too much alcohol, you wouldn't tell somebody to get a buzz that you need to drink more liquor. You need to have a stronger liquor. Like, I don't know how people
at
don't
first,
see this.
when you look at it and someone is an alcoholic and he starts trembling and then he drinks alcohol and the tremor goes away, it looks like it's working, but it really isn't. And anyone that have a brain can see that. But with glucose and insulin, they don't.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's a huge problem because you can't go onto every street corner and find Oxycontin. I don't know how to buy heroin around me, but as I explained to our mutual friend, Tia Reed, like, I can find sugar everywhere. I can go to a hardware store and find sugar everywhere. Like, it's so ubiquitous and inexpensive and easy to find. That's a big problem.
You'd be hard pressed to find food that doesn't contain sugar.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. It's like if you go to every street corner and find cocaine, we'd have a big problem on our hands. And that's basically what we've created. Wow. Well, your story is amazing. Again, tell us a little bit more about some of your results as you were recovering things, getting off of insulin. That's amazing. You obviously lost a bit of weight. What other things did you see improvement with?
So, well, with the weight loss came also my drive to want to move. I did probably over-exercise, and that might have caused some more flares. But I'm able to go places. I'm able to be on my feet. I'm able to go to the low carb conferences and enjoy them. I don't have to wear a seatbelt extender anymore. When I go to the restaurant, I'm not wedged into these booths, you know. And I see my kids sitting there, and they have like this space, and then I'm sitting there, and the table is pushing on my belly, and actually that much that I feel slightly nauseous, but that still wouldn't keep me from eating the meal. But those are real restrictions. I find often in diabetes groups, people will say, "Oh no, I could never eat keto. It's so restrictive." And I have to say, going to the sink and being drenched in sweat, that's restrictive. Not being able to do what you want to do is restrictive. Being in pain and fatigued, or like just dead tired all day, is restrictive. Being in a wheelchair or bedbound or bedridden, having to depend on others to care for me, that's restrictive. And they say, "Oh, cake is life," and no, it's not. It's going out and having fun. That's life, not cake.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I can very happily eat ground beef and steak and eggs for the rest of my life, and I don't feel like it's restricted. If you looked at the number of foods I consume in a day, it's not very many. I don't change it very often, but it does not feel restrictive whatsoever, given the energy that you feel, the liveness, the lack of fatigue is such a big thing. The brain fog, like you explained, to have those things like drop out, it's amazing.
It's also convenient. Because when I want to eat, I just grab a pack of hamburger from the freezer. I put it on the, well, if I want to eat fast, I put it on a warm bowl and cook it right away. But it's so convenient because I don't have to worry about making dinner plans. I don't have to worry about all that. I just warm up beef. That's it.
So great. And it's inexpensive as well. Like, I tell people like how many eggs I eat in a day, and they're like, "Whoa, the eggs are so expensive. I know the prices on eggs have gone up. Like, how do you afford it?" And it's like, it is a few dollars a day. It does not cost very much money, and it's absolutely delicious. And you just never get sick of some of those foods. I've been so excited.
I'm getting
to ask
mine
you.
for $4.50 a pound, not a pound, like a dozen.
Yeah.
And if I ate just eggs, I would eat a dozen, and that's $4.50 a day. So that's not expensive. Like
It's
a
not
latte
expensive.
macchiato or something, way more sugar would be more expensive. No nutrition.